evening, everybody, and welcome to Fire Up. Are we excited or what?
Yes, I'm fired up to be on with two of my favorite people. Woohoo!
We have a special guest. Miss Jen is here in the broadcast with us. She is one of my girls from Tuesday nights from Chicks and Salsa. Welcome, Jen.
Thanks, Andy.
I'm happy to have two of my glops with me. Now, if we could just get Megan and Carrie on board, it would be a full score.
It's been hard to get all four of us on one show on our regular time slot, much less any other time slot lately.
For real.
Well, my co-host Smoking Jeremy B, how are you doing?
Any day I wake up is good, despite how I feel.
I hear you, especially lately. Whew. Yes, it has been quite the week. You know, whenever we have a Monday off for Memorial Day, we just shoot 5 days of work into a 4-day work week, and so it makes it just that much more.
And I'm going to do my mid-year review because it's tomorrow morning because it's due by end of day tomorrow.
Wow. So we do.
I've already got it written. I just want to get like 2 things completed before I submit it. So.
Okay. So we do have some people in the chat room already. James Burgess.
Flaherty. Hits through 5 innings for the Tigers today. The top of the 6th, and they're up 1-0.
Joshua Dorr. Smoking Jay, good to see you back on SFT. And then, of course, asking if there's going to be any hockey on the show today.
I haven't figured out how to stream it into the split screen on the corner, so I don't.
I'll say this, Boo Rangers.
And then, question for Jen, did you get a new computer?
No, sir, but I let it completely die, so I went and fade out. I do need to get more memory, though.
Hey, JB, finally able to watch a show live. Much love.
Thank
RXJ.
You. RXJ, and congratulations to you on being a part of Detroit Fan Report, talking about the Lions. Congratulations, sir.
Joshua, hello, is this thing on? Yes, Joshua, we are here. Candy in the Motor City Mad Mouse spot tonight. You recognized I moved into the studio tonight. You got it. Yep. Joshua, I know you're watching hockey right now. I actually have it on in the background. Yes, the Panthers are tied 0-0 in the first. So, and look who joined us.
Hello, William.
Hello, Mr. Vogel. Or should I say surrogate son of Ralph Williams? That's been the joke on the show.
Can I announce a question, address a question Rocket Scientist asked
of course.
At the end of last week's show? Rocket Scientist, I believe you asked me what I thought of Neuralink. Honestly, with AI and with like Google Voice and Alexa, no, there's no need for Neuralink because they already know everything we're freaking thinking anyway. So.
So Rocket Scientist thinks I should be in the studio and Scott out on the couch. Aw, from now on. I don't think that's going to happen, but, you know, and then Will, my 3 favorite people. Aw, thanks, Will.
Thanks,
we appreciate that.
We like you, too.
We do. And then he says, Jen, we're going to get together.
You keep promising that and never text me anymore. I'm going to start singing What Will Lonely Hearts Do?
Uh-oh. Oh, no. Okay, well, you know what? We're going to start the show out, and I'm going to let Jeremy start because he has a topic that he wants to talk about.
Tuesday night, while I was bored and after Inside the Pigskin, I saw Ian Rappaport go live on Threads and Instagram, and he started talking about the upcoming CBA for 2026 that's coming up. Because, you know, they start working that stuff out between the NFLPA and the NFL headquarters now instead of waiting to the last minute. That way the owners can get their say and make their changes, and everything can get right by 2026. So that we don't end up with a strike issue like you had back in the late 80s, early 90s?
Mm-hmm.
So on the slate, they're talking about doing away with OTAs completely and just doing a ramp up of training camp from June till the start of preseason in the second or third week of August, because there's only going to be 2 preseason games.
I've heard that.
And then they're going to have 18 games instead of 17 games, which I like and I don't like at the same time, but there's another reason for that. But with the preseason games costing just as much as your regular season games, it really doesn't matter how many you have when it comes to the cost of going to see. What it does matter is the TV money and the viewer and the Nelson ratings for the game, because the Nelson ratings are way lower for the preseason games than they are for any regular season game on the market. So that's going to be more revenue, which could equal to more cap. But they said the reason why they want to do away with the OTAs is to reduce injuries in the offseason. And I'm sitting there and going, okay, so wait a minute. They took away 2-a-days. They took away this. They took away that already. They shortened the offseason already, and they shortened the preseason. And ever since they did that back in 2019, we have seen 33% increase in regular season games of soft tissue injury.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to come back to bite the whole NFL right in the butt doing that, and they'll bring back OTAs on the next CBA or some type of early workouts. Because number one, the vet OTA that they do prior to the draft is just so the players can get comfortable with each other, reconnect, have their moment. And it's more about working out than it actually is practice. It's just a little 4-day mini camp. Then you got the draft. And then after that, you usually have the second year guys and all of your UDFAs and rookies you drafted meet up, see who's going to make that cut for the 90-man roster for going into training camps and the OTAs coming up. That way you got your roster set, you know who you have, and all of that. There is really not a lot of playbook time right there for these rookies. It's just the sophomore guys come in and say, hey, this is how we do it here. This is what you're going to do. This is how we work out. That's what that little 4-day camp is.
I don't understand getting away from doing some of these preseason things, ways to gel and ways to get your body into the right frame of mind and gear. Like you said, injuries are up 33%, and this is partly why. And it does not surprise me.
I mean, you're talking, there's more obliques, there's more torn pecs, torn biceps. That's all soft tissue injuries. That's muscular. That's not because they were hit. That's not because of contact. ACL, PCL, MCLs, LCLs, Achilles tendons, calf strains, hamstrings. All these things are happening in the regular season more than they are in the off season. In the rare instance that somebody has a bad type of hit, you may hear about an injury in the off season, but there's no contact until like the last 2 weeks of training camp anyway, so you hardly ever hear of it anymore.
And what about the joint practices?
Now that's what they were talking about doing. Instead of doing the 2 or 3 preseason games, you're going to have your 2 preseason games, but you're also going to have 2 joint practices during the training camp. And I like that idea because that's going to be the equivalent of like having 4 preseason games, and that might get the guys a little more game ready for the start of the season than the way they got it now, just doing joint practices during the preseason. But they're going to do 2 prior and 1 during.
But I think one thing they should address is getting rid of turf.
Oh,
they have to address that.
If you do have turf, you have to address the fact you got to have proper drainage, because the problem is moisture, and humidity causes moisture. And as long as you're outdoors and you have turf in a southern market with humidity, that means that stuff is an ice skating rink.
Ding, 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 ding. And more injuries. And then up north, like at MetLife Stadium, you're getting more injuries, especially in the winter. But you also get a little more, moisture too, because you're on the Atlantic Ocean. For all intents and purposes, you're on the Atlantic Ocean.
You're going to have humidity.
Right. And I don't know what their turf is like. I know when I've seen our turf,
It's the slit turf.
honestly, like I've seen better turf in backyards.
Well,
like legit.
And there's one other team that has one of the worst fields in the league, and nobody talks about it because they say, oh, they got grass. It's great. But they forget Arizona, because of how hot it is outside and the air conditioning's running all the time, the cement sweats underneath that grass. And that's why it'll look like they've been playing in mud mid-game sometimes, because that cement sweating, and that makes that rolled up grass that they put outside to water and grow it and everything else, and then they bring it back in. That doesn't work either. I think they need to do, if they're going to have the cement, they have to do a layer of soil on top of it to cushion it, to let that soil actually absorb that moisture rather than it going up and becoming mud.
Because I didn't know they didn't. I don't know. I didn't know that, but I
roll the grass out right on top of the cement.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I'm with you, Patty. I saw it too, but I mean, because it looked pretty. Well, at least it looked really pretty for Super Bowl. But they spent a lot of money to make sure it looked pretty for Super Bowl.
Right, and I think they need either that or they got to use some type of an absorbent carpet matting, like carpet padding underneath it to help absorb that moisture that comes up.
Arizona and in New Mexico, more college for New Mexico. I understand a very high level turf, but maybe it's time to come up with a new type of grass for your arid and mountainous desert regions, because you're getting a lot of injuries there. And then when you're talking about the concrete under, when these guys fall or get tackled, they're being tackled on concrete.
Right. It's no different than being in any other dome stadium. You can say what you want and it looks prettier, but at the end of the game, it doesn't look as pretty as that slit turf does.
Yeah. I mean,
but if you notice, and here's the thing, something must be done right, because Detroit has actually got large bodies of water around it too. You can say what you want. There's a lot of humidity because we're a peninsula, just like Florida. It gets just as hot and humid here. You're not hearing about a lot of those soft tissue injuries in Detroit anymore, and they do use the slit turf. So it must have something to do with the amount of padding that they have underneath it to avoid those injuries.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. If the other teams that have the domes and use the slit turf could model it maybe off of whatever the depth of padding they have underneath that slit turf, you might see less injuries across the league overall.
Yeah. Because, the injuries are serious. Because I remember, and I was actually, I think my Panthers guys were actually happy when the Lions played on December 24th, 2 years ago. And sorry, we took away your playoff chances. We were fighting for our own then. But hey Mike, email David Tepper for me, okay? Because we need safe turf, because like here, like it gets as swampy as it does in Florida. Because at least where you guys are, Candy, at least you get an ocean breeze. Charlotte, there ain't no breeze.
No.
There ain't no breeze coming in the middle of the summer.
And that's just like Orlando. If you think about it, they get all the humidity from both oceans there, but they don't have the coastal breezes in the center of the state. It's the same thing in Orlando.
Yeah.
Right.
It's swampy.
Right.
Well, and the one thing you guys forget is that the ground down here is always hot. Like, up in Detroit, it gets colder in the winter. So there's a time frame for that, the concrete and all that to get colder. Down here, people think it's cold if it's 60 degrees down here, which is not cold, but that's what people think.
But when you're inland, like near that Zephyr Hills, Lakeland, Orlando area, where they actually do get a mild cold spell in late January through early March, where they might see frost in the morning, and the orange growers all go nuts about it. I know, I live down there. That's why I can talk about it. It's crazy. It's such a different dynamic for the weather than anybody here in Michigan has ever experienced. Patty Grimes with going to Arizona. He has seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God, James, because we do have mixed company on the show tonight.
And he was talking about why he stayed as OC when everyone was like, oh, what head coaching job is he going to get? Where is he going to go? What's he going to do? And he described it today in a way that I hadn't heard somebody, but very intelligently said, I'm not looking just for one contract. If I'm going to make the leap, I want to make sure there's going to be a second contract, which means I'm going to be there more than 3 or 4 years, because let's face it, these NFL owners, if you don't produce now, you're gone, and they move on from you because they have to, because it's such a big money. And he's got a family, and he loves it in Detroit. He loves the people he's working with. His family loves the whole thing. Kudos to him. Yeah. Because he probably could have made more money going to a head coaching job, but it's not always about the job. It's about liking what you do and the people that you're working with.
It is an amazing thing to have Ben Johnson still here. And if you think about it, if you look across the league, how many leagues have all three, head coach, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator, still together this year? How many teams? There isn't many.
Mm-mm. Nope.
I mean, Kyle Scamahan threw Steve Wilkes under the bus after the Super Bowl. When
I swear.
I still think to this day he was a scapegoat.
Yeah. I mean, face it, Jeremy. Steve the is the reason why the 49ers ended up beating the Detroit Lions.
Well, but Kyle's, and I call him Kyle Scamahan for a reason. Both times
I agree.
In the Super Bowl,
23 and 3.
They did the exact same thing that he did when he was the OC of the fail cans. And yes, I call him the fail cans because of that game versus the Patriots.
I call him that for a lot of other reasons. Like, I'll say our first matchup with Falcons, chances are they're going to win. But they always day off halfway through. And and honestly, Shanahan was, when they were talking about him coming to Carolina, I think Tepper actually read the room. I think he actually read the room, because we were like, no.
Hi, Brian.
I agree. If they're going to do that and require that there's 2 training camps between different franchises doing the joint practices, there should be refs or some type of NFL official on site.
Yeah. I mean,
because we saw what happened when it's not monitored, and we saw those joint practices where you saw skirmishes that broke out into full-on brawls between the 2 teams. And that's not a good look for the NFL.
No.
Not when you got guys like Rasheed Rice causing accidents, and you got a few years back Henry Ruggs being drunk and causing a girl to die in an accident. And now you got guys like Isaiah Buggs not having anybody take care of his dogs while he's out of town. And one of them had to be put down, and he has an arrest warrant for him. So there's all sorts of crazy things going on. But it's funny how the Kansas City Chiefs are slowly turning into the old Oakland Raiders.
Who would have thought that?
I mean, the
Bug plays for is the reason why I said it. That's 2 people with major problems.
Well, and here's the thing. Part of preseason is just show off the players you already know you're going to cut, so they can get a shot with one of the other 31 teams out there. Mm-hmm. That's a big part of why we have that. And that's important. It's also important to get the guys, the rookies, used to playing in front of a crowd. And yeah, the preseason tickets are less expensive. No doubt about it. But honestly, like, sometimes I'll gladly give, my dad will gladly give a family preseason tickets if they can't afford to go to a regular season game. Because honestly, in Charlotte in August, it's too hot to sit up there. It's just too hot. And it's preseason. So I'm sorry. I would rather sit in my air-conditioned house and watch it. And I know that makes me a Fairweather fan, but you know what? It also makes me aware of my health because my butt ain't getting dehydrated for a damn preseason game. Give me Sunday, and I'm right there, and I'll get dehydrated for a regular season game. But no.
At least you're one of the ones that do have season tickets. They don't usually miss games. I'm kind of ashamed of the casual Panther fans, and I'm not saying the bad ones, the bandwagon ones. I'm talking about the casual fans that say they're diehards and everything else. Because your guys' attendance was so low that one game you guys had seats offered at 48 cents a piece, and people didn't buy them.
Mm-hmm.
That's atrocious. That does not look good.
You wouldn't see that in Green Bay.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way you're going to see that in about probably 30 of the markets in the NFL.
Now, I will say about Green Bay, the interesting thing with them is they used to play part of their season down in Milwaukee. So they still have season ticket holders that were Milwaukee holders. And so they have 3 to 4 games each season that are still the Milwaukee package or the gold package for season tickets. Right. And always 1 or 2 of those are a preseason game. So you have different, and it's the same fan base, but it's different season ticket holders holding some of those. So you see the crowds, I mean, no matter what. But yeah, part of it is because a season ticket that holds for all of the home games. There are some Milwaukee package.
So if you ask me about what Ben Johnson's saying, he wants to go to a team that's more established, that's getting ready to lose a coach that's had long tenure. That way, it's like a moderation of success. He can come in and he knows that team stands behind him. And the only one coming up, possibly, is the guy that's talked about retirement the last 2 years, Mike Tomlin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be the only team, but don't you think there's a succession plan already in place?
There may be. You don't know. But the succession plan that we thought was in place ended last year because he went to become the defensive coordinator for Minnesota. That was Brian Flores.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
I don't know.
I don't know that was ever going to actually be a succession plan personally. And it sucks for him based on the lawsuit, which he rightfully needed to pursue 100%. But
well, the fact that he won that case, if you remember, that's one of the reasons why that owner got taxed and why they didn't have first round picks the one year and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So on top of all that, Brian Flores should get another head coaching job soon.
Good. So should Steve Wilkes.
Right. Both of them should. Steve Wilkes did a great job in the interim with the Panthers that year when Matt.
Yeah. And he was hung out to dry in Arizona. Like, he was a Rooney hire. And it was obvious because he was he was hired after the draft, after free agency. He didn't get to pick his own coaching staff. Like, I mean, I feel so bad for Coach Wilkes because he is a phenomenal stand-up man. And I actually think because Tepper didn't hire Wilkes as the head coach, that's why he went for Frank Reich, because Frank was our first quarterback. But Frank only played 2 games.
And then got injured.
Starting at QB. And I mean, and I can understand why no one would want to come to the Carolina Panthers after last year. I mean, hey, there are people calling Ben Johnson up and saying, don't take this job. There were legit people. I kind of think I know one of the people calling him, but they have denied it vehemently to me. But I'm like, I still think it was you. And I understand why. And I will never say that person's name. That person has never been on our podcast. I will sometimes be with this person, but not often. So yeah. But I mean, with the Athletic writes an article calling it the Hunger Games in Carolina, there's an issue.
Question for Smoking Jay. Will Bo have over or under 75 shows tomorrow? It's under. His shows last an hour. It's physically impossible to have 75 shows in a day. Question for
And the
Dan.
question for me is, where is Scott right now? Scott is relaxing. He decided for the most, well, I shouldn't say that. He will take off some Thursday nights. He is actually watching the Panthers Rangers game right now, and I know it's intermission, but yeah, he's watching the game.
Still
So
0-0.
it is still 0-0.
So there's your hockey update.
There is, yeah. See, we talked a little bit of hockey. Okay, guys, I have a question.
Sure.
Have you ever heard of a high school center fielder sprinting home to tag out a runner?
Until you told me, no.
Agreed with Jeremy. But I love that drive. I love that dedication, and some MLB team needs to be looking at that person.
So normally when a center fielder makes a play at the plate, it involves nailing someone with the rocket of a throw. Well, one Ohio high school center fielder used his legs, not his arm, to make a highlight reel play last week Friday. In a varsity baseball game between Fort Recovery and Marion Local, Mason Local center fielder for the Griffin Burns showed previously unseen levels of a hustle on a baseball diamond. It all began when batter Caden Grisses hit a blooper into the outfield. The ball dropped between the three Marion players, and Burns eventually scooped it up. Normally that would be a single, but with the shortstop and second baseman both in shallow center field after unsuccessfully trying to catch the ball, nobody was covering second base, so the runner kept running. The bizarre play set off a chain reaction of uncovered bases. The third baseman went to cover second, leaving third base open then. So the runner started running to third. So the base runner kept running. Finally, the center fielder took off because he's like, no one's covering the bases. I'm going to go towards the runner. He literally ran, beat him home, and tagged him out before he could score.
Not only is that amazing, but think about this. There's only probably 3 or 4 guys in the history of Major League Baseball that could probably pull that play off. Off the top of my head, Ron LaFleur, Ricky Henderson, and maybe there was a time when Jose Canseco wasn't that built like when he became the Bash Brothers, and he was actually a 30 for 30 guy. That means 30 stolen bases, 30 home runs, and 30 triples in the same season. He's one of 4 players to do that in Major League history. So maybe him at that time, before he got so big that he couldn't get his legs to move without banging their knees into each other, yeah, he probably could have did it. And
can you believe that tonight D-backs Gallen exits with a hamstring strain after only throwing 6 pitches?
Why do professional teams not have chiropractors? Because if you have your back in line, that reduces the strain on your hamstrings. Now, I know chiropractors have like a very mixed bag of chips, but it actually helps. I mean,
I'm going to say something to rocket scientist, and he's not going to like it. And it's because the old guys that watch hockey are very much fans of the original 6 teams. You're talking about Boston, New York Rangers, Detroit Red Wings, Chicago Blackhawks, Montreal Canadiens, and Toronto Maple Leafs. Was that not the original 6?
I think so.
So as much as I hate to say it, the old guard, the guys that have been watching hockey their entire lives, those were the 6 teams they watched the most. So when they're in the playoffs, they have a tendency to root for those teams. It's nothing against the Panthers. It's because it's an expansion team.
That has a lot to do with it. It also has a lot to do with sometimes as people are in the media and they deal with the PR people from the different teams, they may have a little bias. Let's put it that way. And I'm not going to call any team out, but sometimes different PR groups are easier to work with than others. So,
right.
But with that being said, we always have a segment on the show, and it's called My Town. And that's where you talk about either a town you're living in now or a town you grew up in and something that's happening in the sports world in that town. So, Jen, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot because you've done this once before, but you haven't done it recently. Do you need a minute to prepare for that? Or
Actually, I have one, and I've something I'm really excited about.
Perfect.
So, one thing that I love about Coach Canales and Dan Morgan, what you two may not know, and what a lot of listeners may not know, is that Jerry Richardson did not come up with "Keep Pounding" for our logo. Sam Mills did. And a very impassioned speech when he finally, during the middle of a playoff game against the Cowboys, he told the guys in the locker room, I mean, I could quote the entire speech, but summing it up, telling him to keep pounding. That's when he announced that he had cancer. And that if he got up, went to treatment every single day, then came to practice, and he kept pounding, then every single one of those guys in that locker room should keep pounding. Dan Morgan, Julius Peppers, Kevin Green, amongst others, were all in there. By the way, 2 out of 3 of those names are already Hall of Famers. Dan Morgan should be. Just saying. But Dan was in there. Keep Pounding came from the coaching staff. Keep Pounding came from the locker room and the players. That is what they marched into the second half, like after halftime. They marched onto the field, and that was their call, Keep Pounding. Keep Pounding is embedded in North and South Carolina and our communities. If you're going through a tough time, you say keep pounding. If you see a friend going through a tough time, if you see a stranger in the face who just looks distressed, you just go up to him and be like, hey, keep pounding, keep pounding. And I agree with you, James. But when our team was sold, and understandably, Mr. Tepper wanted to bring in his own motto. You can't get away from it. It's too embedded. It's Carolina. It's part of Georgia. It is part of Virginia. It is part of California. I saw it in California. And I love that Coach Canales and Dan Morgan are bringing it back. And that is so important to who our identity is. Like, Jeremy, you saw when y'all were playing us, and in the third quarter, that's the only time they've done it for the last 5 years, is the third quarter, they would do keep pounding twice. And every single time they do keep pounding, they would, sorry, I'm tired. That's with the Southernese. Every time they would do keep pounding, you would see whichever quarterback we had out of the 9 we had during those past 5 years, you would see it get energized. You would see defense and offense. So I'm really glad my town and my GM and my new head coach are bringing that back.
Well, you know what I love about Dan Morgan?
What?
I love the fact that when he was hired, he looked at Dave Tepper. He goes, keep your hands out of my business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what? He has been.
It made a huge difference in your free agency and your draft, in my opinion.
And David Tepper looks a little more relaxed.
Right. Because he finally has somebody that had the stones to tell him to shut the hell up.
Which is what he needed. And that's actually why I wanted Steve Wilkes also, because Coach Wilkes had the stones to do it. But it was too late.
Wow. Until about 10, 12 years ago, home break-ins in Green Bay on football Sunday were rampant. City stepped up patrols and got that under control.
Really?
It's interesting.
But at the same time, do you want me to go first or do you want me to go first, Candy?
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay. I kind of have a two-part my town. One has to do with the Tigers. And I understand that every Tigers fan that's a loyal fan right now loves Tariq Skubal, who's in the top 5 for current Cy Young and everything else because he's in the top 5 of statistics across the league. But after Scott Harris did the interview the other day saying he doesn't know when they're going to start actually spending to bring in big talent. The only way we're going to fix this roster and be ready within 3 years is going to do something that's going to make the Tigers faithful upset. And that's trade Tariq Skubal right now while his value is the highest before he gets into his second contract and get a haul of young talent to come in here. Because our farm system, while they say it's a top 5, it's miles below the top 3.
Yeah.
Our best prospect is 25th. Our second best is 56th. And it goes excrementally down way below the top 100 baseball prospects. So if you think about that, if we're considered top 5 with only 3 guys in the top 100, that's not that good of a farm system when you're talking about AAA, AA, single A, and there's high single A and low single A. So that's 4 different teams that is your farm system. You could rebuild the whole farm system and be ready in 4 years with a core that can come up and be solid. Because I like our coaching, our assistant coaching, as far as hitting and pitching and everything else coming up out of the minors better than what we have with AJ Hinch right now.
I hear you.
And the second part is former Pittsburgh Steelers / Detroit Lions, now Kansas City Chiefs defensive tackle. I mentioned it already once, Isaiah Buggs. What are you thinking? How, with the money you have, because you've made millions now, not have somebody taking care of your dogs while you're traveling? Shame on you, sir. You are a POS. Just like Adam Sandler sang about his car.
Yeah.
You completely agree.
Because one of your dogs had to be put down. He was so emaciated he couldn't stand up and had to be hauled into the Tuscaloosa Animal Sheriff's Department's vehicle to be taken back to the animal hospital at the Humane Society. And that's a travesty.
And doesn't he have family there too?
Yes. He was born and raised in that county.
Just sad. Just sad.
I hope whatever book they can throw at him, they throw it hard.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yes, I agree.
So I know that we had some hockey fans that were on earlier, and they were begging for hockey. And typically, I don't do hockey as my town, but the Milwaukee Admirals, after they shut out Grand Rapids Griffins in Game 5 of the Central Division Finals on Sunday, they set the stage for a Western Conference Finals showdown against the Coachella Valley Firebirds. This is the second year in a row that the National Predators AHL affiliate will face the Firebirds in the semifinal round of the Calder Cup playoffs. Milwaukee lost last year, and they have lost the first game of the 5-game battle so far. But kudos to them for making it that far and doing it 2 years in a row. That means they have consistent talent. They have a great goaltender. And I wish them nothing but the best. Good luck. My second parting shot, because I'm going to take a minute. And I want to say May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think we all need to focus more on mental health. Because this last weekend, we saw a golfer take his own life. We had to read about a parent that came out and said, as much as it hurts, they know their son is at peace now. We need to do whatever we can to help anybody out there that is having mental health issues. Reach out to any one of us, because any one of us, whether we can help you or point you in the right direction, we would be more than happy to.
Yeah.
Please don't suffer in silence.
And don't forget, if you are a veteran, there is the veteran suicide hotline out there. And you don't have to be wanting to commit suicide to call them. You can be just depressed and need someone to talk to. And I know it's hard. As a man, it's hard for us to open up and actually tell our true feelings to somebody because we're raised not to do it. Please reach out, because every 22 seconds a vet commits suicide, and that's a travesty that happens in our nation.
Yes.
Jen, I didn't mean that. I know that's probably a subject with you, but it needs to be taken care of. I'm tired of hearing of guys that I was in with, and we were in peacetime, and these guys are committing suicide.
Yeah. I have a friend who's active with the Lions, and I'm not going to say what he does, but he has PTSD. He has tried to take his own life several times before I knew him, and I'm pretty sure he did this past Thanksgiving weekend too. But he means a lot. So if he happens to be watching, you know who I'm talking to, and you know I love you, and I think the world of you.
But reach out to any one of us.
And if you're not hearing from a friend that you know has had depression, reach out to them. Be their voice of reason. Because sometimes all they need is someone to reach out and say, I care.
Mm-hmm.
The life you save may be better than what you know. Smoking
Exactly.
Dad, I'm here, sir.
I'm just putting up these last little but yeah, so with that, I think we're going to close out the show. So I want you guys to tell everybody how they can find you. And like we said, if anybody needs help, reach out to one of us. Jen, how can people find you?
Well, you can find me with you on Tuesday nights, and I'll let you talk a little more if you want. But we have an amazing guest that Candy has procured for us coming up this Tuesday. I'm super stoked. So thank you. Jeremy, you better be watching your gloves.
It's hard. I'm being told in so many directions lately, you don't even understand.
And Will Vogel, you better be watching too. And I expect both of you to watch our show from last week because it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. But you can find us on YouTube at The Chicks Podcast. You can, and like you'll see some other content that we like uploaded from different events we've covered. You've also find me on Facebook as Jennifer Matthews Lewis. You can also find me on Reddit at Jenna Cheryl, on X at Jenna Cheryl, the professional fan. And please do follow me because I need more followers, people. I promise I won't be too invasive.
I follow you.
I know, I follow you too. Yeah. I follow you too, Candy. And then
the way our vets are treated is a travesty. You know, I don't care what conflict, peacetime, whatever you were in.
Yeah.
You deserve what you
I had a friend who was a vet who committed suicide, but it wasn't because of war. His sister was accosted at Michigan, and he wasn't there to protect her, so he passed away. She did too, actually, because of what happened to her. So their mother lost 2 children to suicide, and she has 1 child left alive. So yes, reach out. Please reach out. But yeah, you can find me everywhere. I don't do TikTok. I'm sorry, I'm not that cool. One day I'll be as cool as Jake the Pundit, but you know, hey, I'm not there yet. You can find me on Instagram at Jenna Cheryl, the professional fan, as well.
Smoking Jeremy B, how can people find you?
I'm everywhere. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Threads. I'm at
Are you on TikTok?
No, I refuse to get on TikTok. I don't like it.
I do too.
I don't like how they sell our stuff to the Chinese, but that's a whole nother story.
They don't
But
sell it
anyway,
to the Chinese. The Chinese owns it.
right, but I'm just saying they sell that information to the highest bidder is what I'm getting at. The Chinese do. But anyways, I am on IG. I am on Facebook. Jeremy Ballrick, you can find me. Or you can find me with my podcast page now, which is Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions. You can also find me in my group for the Lions, which is Motor City Kneecap Biters. You can find me on Roku, on the Huddle Up Sports Network, and also on Amazon Fire Stick. You can find me on YouTube at Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions. You can find me on Twitter at Smoke and Jeremy B. I'm
Ken,
all my writing.
and I'm sorry to cut you off, Candy. Ken, try again, but try going to a different VA because they're supposed to protect you and help you, especially if you have any disability rating at all. But check them out again. Even go to the national website and call in. But they are supposed to help you. 100%. I know this for a fact due to one of my previous roles. But do it.
Thank you for helping my dad.
You're welcome. I'll see if what I can find out also on a personal note and let you know, Jeremy.
And let's not forget, you can always find me on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. You can find my writings at the southfloridatribune.com under the Motor City Tribune heading. Oh, and last but not least, before we let Candy do everything in her sign off, which includes the plethora of places that this broadcast is being aired to, try every day to be a better person than you were the day before. It's the only way we're going to make the world a better place. It starts right here. Much love to everybody.
So yes, I have to go through my spiel. If you see the red subscribe button, that means you have not subscribed to the South Florida Tribune's YouTube channel. I do not understand why not. Hit it, like us, share us with all of your friends. Tell everybody about it. If you like talking baseball, we talk baseball on Monday nights. We talk football on Tuesday nights. Wednesday nights, Sports Exchange, you never know what we're talking about. And Thursday nights, Fire Up, you never know what we're talking about on there too. We like to keep it real, keep you guessing. Tuesday nights, I also do with Miss Jen, Chicks in a Pod or Chicks in Salsa. So you have to check that out. That's 7:30 Eastern on Tuesday nights.
Mm-hmm.
This next week, we have a special guest, Mr. Joel Franco, who is the founder of Where Our Children Play. And that's a foundation that helps kids. And when I say kids, it can be any age kids with sports, with mental health, with nutrition, all of the above, because it's not just about helping the kids in one area. It's about helping the kids being an overall healthy and just in shape, and providing them with educational type topics to make them successful.
If I remember right, it's mental health, it's tutoring, it's nutrition, it's not all of that, and it's about the cross training of sports and how this sport's going to help with that sport because the fundamentals are the same. It is an amazing program, and it's available online, even if it's not available in your city at this time. And I believe he said it was $50 a month, which that's relatively cheap to enroll your student athlete into something like that. And it also gives training to the parents on how to be a better athletic parent.
And any other kids that are and it's about being a wellness for the whole family. So it's a great organization. They're actually doing a documentary, I believe, as well. And I don't know when that's going to be coming out. So tune in Tuesday night to see Joel Franco on Chicks and Salsa and learn more and bring your questions. But yes. South Florida Tribune, we also have a website, www.southfloridatribune.com. You can read Jeremy's writings, my pictures, Scott's writing, George Eichhorn's writings. Jen, I think you wrote one, didn't you?
Who did you write it about? The Panthers?
I don't remember because I've written for a couple of different networks. So
obviously we got to get Jen to write more. But also wherever you get your podcasts, you can hear us. iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, Spotify, Castbox, Deezer, you name it. If you have show ideas, please email us, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And if you have ideas for chicks and salsa, email me, southfloridatribune@gmail.com, and I'll bring them up, of course. If you want to be a guest, let us know. If you want to sponsor a show or you want to advertise, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you missed any of that, it's scrolling at the bottom. But one plug that I'm going to say, my husband, Scott, wrote a book. In fact, I can put up a big copy of it. Let me do that. Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. George Eichhorn wrote the foreword. There's pictures in there. There's all kinds of stories about how the media has changed over Scott's 40-plus years in the media. You got to read it. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle. We are working on an audio book to be coming shortly.
Oh, I love you, brother. Stop hurting me about the Griffins, damn it. I thought we had.
Oh. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
And I agree with the statement he made about Isaiah Bugs. I am one of those people that have to change the channel when the ASPCA.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, my sentiments exactly. I won't use the same word, but with a cactus. Yes.
Prickly one.
Yes. I'm talking about one of the prickly ones.
Oh, why don't we just let him hang out with Hannah Gutierrez? She's in New Mexico.
Keegan, nice of you to show up.
Yeah.
But I love Keegan. Keegan's one of my guys that comes on my show on a used to be a regular basis, but he's been working too much lately, and I get it. If you have the chance to work and make money, I'm happy for anybody that's doing that.
I used to know somebody with that exact same name.
Keegan Eckert?
Keegan Eckert, yeah.
Young guy?
Probably. Like his dad used to work with my husband.
Did you guys
no idea.
be at Michigan?
I don't know. We'll talk off camera.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank everybody that's been in the chat room, from James to Joshua to RXJ to Rocket Scientist to Will to Patty Grimes to Mike Fisher to who else? Ryan Cushion, Joshua Dory, yep. Ken. Ken. Let's see. Anybody else that I missed? Yoli. We just had.
I was trying to make her aware. Candy is a Packers fan too, Yoli. You should watch the show every week.
Oh yes, Yoli. I am definitely a Packer backer. But with that.
Oh wait.
Okay, with that, thank you everybody for joining us. Never know what we'll come up with for next week. We'd love to hear all your comments though, and if you have any ideas, let us know. You guys all have a great weekend, and one last reminder, if you know anybody that's depressed or if you are depressed, reach out to any one of us. No judgment. We're here to help.
Yes. If I can't help you with the problem, I'll make you laugh until you forget it. Because that's my go-to. If I can't fix it, I make people laugh, because that's what I do.
Laughter's the best medicine.
It is.
That's what I say too. Okay, guys, it's been a great show. Thank you all for viewing. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Thanks, Jen, for being here.